She's charged with the foul there. That's her third personal foul of.
I'm completely different off the court than I am on the court. Like, I step in between the lines, like I'm there to kind of kill. You just want to go out there and be the best. You want to beat whoever's sitting on the other bench, no matter who it is. And like you look over there and you just want to win so bad.
Caitlin Clark on the move. Here we go, Caitlin Clark. Right on cue. Caitlin Clark tries again. This time it's good. Caitlin Clark, the vision and the execution. How dangerous is Team USA in the open court?
I remember when I was a young girl watching the Olympics or watching the World Cup and dreaming of a moment like this. So obviously getting to make my debut at 24 is pretty fun for myself. So truly just a really big honor.
Hello guys, welcome to TFD. This is Cordy. All right lads, today we're going to talk about something pretty interesting. I came across this clip of Angel McCoughtry speaking about Caitlin Clark on what I believe was a podcast from Just Women's Sports, and honestly, it caught my attention because it's one of those moments where you hear a former star talk about the current moment in women's basketball, and it gives you a lot to think about. Before getting into the clip itself, though, I want to say something first. I legitimately like Angel McCoughtry. I think she's one of the better players to ever play the game. Now, calling her one of the absolute GOATs might be a bit of an overstatement, but there's no denying how good she was during her prime. To give you an idea of how talented she was, McCoughtry was actually good enough to keep Candace Parker off an Olympic roster during one of those cycles. And if you know how great Candace Parker is, that tells you everything you need to know about the level Angel was playing at. There were stretches of her career where she was legitimately a top 5 player in the world on any given day. That's the level she reached at her peak. So, with that context in mind, we're going to look at this clip and I'm going to give my opinion on what she said. And honestly, my take might be a little different from what some people are saying, because while I understand the point she's trying to make, the fact that this conversation is even happening kind of shows just how far women's sports has come since the era when she was playing.
Caitlin kind of crashes out on the ref at USA Basketball.
Yes.
You guys know I would crash out on refs a lot. One thing, Gino...
I stand by this. An awful call. An awful call. And not only that, there was a moving screen. The screen didn't connect, and then she got called for a phantom foul. She had just been called for a phantom hook as well.
At USA Basketball. He said, listen, you guys are going to go out here and win gold for your country. He's like, you're not going to have all the endorsements like the men. Mm-hmm. And we didn't. But he said, you go out there and you win gold for your country anyway. Mm-hmm. And we were like, yeah, let's go win gold. They have that now. They will be on the Wheaties box. Mm-hmm. Caitlin, it probably was a bad call. But right now, you're going to be on the Wheaties box. Who cares if they miss one? You wear USA in your chest. It's a bigger stage. The whole world is watching. Kind of be like, okay. Give a little shrug. I'm like, I'm gonna get this next one.
That is really interesting. I had not even considered it that way. My initial reaction was like, well, all is well in women's basketball. Caitlin's fired up. Like, Caitlin's crashing out. That's part of it.
It comes from comments made by Angel McCoughtry about Caitlin Clark reacting to a referee during international play. And the whole discussion basically centers around Caitlin complaining about a call and whether that kind of reaction is acceptable in international basketball. Now, one thing I've heard a lot from people is this idea that there's a much shorter leash when it comes to referees in international basketball, under FIBA rules. People say players can't react the same way they might in the WNBA or the NBA. But honestly, that's not really true. In many cases, players actually have a bigger leash when it comes to a simple emotional reaction to a call. What is different in international basketball is the consequences. A single technical foul matters a lot more. Under FIBA rules, if you combine a technical with something like an unsportsmanlike foul, you can be ejected pretty quickly. So the stakes are higher. That's the real difference. The referees themselves aren't necessarily more trigger-happy when it comes to technical fouls for reactions. Where they are stricter is with unsportsmanlike or transition fouls. If you commit a take foul in transition, that's often immediately ruled an unsportsmanlike foul. That's where the whistle tends to come quickly. And just to give a bit of context here, this is coming from someone who has actually done some refereeing before. Not at a high professional level, but I've attended referee courses where FIBA instructors were present explaining the philosophy behind officiating. One thing they emphasize very clearly is that referees are advised not to give a technical foul for a single emotional reaction to a call. If a player reacts once, maybe throws their hands up or says, "That's a bad call," that's considered a natural human response. It's part of sports. Usually what happens instead is the referee might give a quiet warning or just acknowledge it and move on. The technical comes when it becomes repetitive, 2, 3, 4 possessions in a row, or if a player keeps arguing throughout the game. That's why in the situation people were talking about with Caitlin Clark, it's incredibly unlikely she would get teed up for a one-off reaction. In fact, sometimes referees don't even warn the player directly. They might go to the bench or the team captain and say something like, "That's your warning. Next time someone reacts like that, it's going to be a technical." The philosophy a lot of international referees talk about is actually pretty simple. If nobody is talking about the referees after the game, they've done their job well. And that's why I find some of the criticism of Caitlin Clark in this situation a bit strange. It almost feels like there's an expectation that women's basketball players should behave in a very controlled, almost perfect way at all times. A lot of that mentality traces back to older coaching cultures, particularly ones associated with programs like UConn Huskies women's basketball under Gino Auriemma. The idea was always about presenting the program in a very specific way. Perfect uniforms, perfect behavior, no visible frustration. But here's the thing, in men's basketball, emotional reactions happen all the time. You'll see players like LeBron James arguing with referees. You'll see Anthony Edwards reacting after a call. Even Luka Doncic, who probably complains more than most, still isn't expected to behave like a robot on the court. Emotion is part of competition, and honestly, sports are more entertaining when players show emotion. We've seen plenty of examples recently in women's basketball, too. Paige Bueckers has shown frustration with officials at times. Caitlin Clark has done it. Even players like Angel Reese have had moments where they question calls, and that's normal. In an ideal world, every player would stay perfectly calm, smile through every bad call, and never react. But that's not reality. Athletes are competing at the highest level, and emotions run high. Anyone who has ever played sports knows this. There's always that one teammate who's the nicest, calmest person off the field, but the moment the game starts, they turn into a completely different person. Tennis is actually a great example of this. Some of the calmest people in everyday life become extremely intense once they step on the court. Competition brings that out. So when people criticize Caitlin Clark for showing emotion over a call, I think the conversation sometimes gets blown way out of proportion. Complaining about a single call rarely changes the outcome of a game, and it rarely results in a technical foul unless it becomes excessive. Now, to be fair, Caitlin Clark does sometimes push that line. There have been moments where she's gotten very animated, and if that happens repeatedly in a game, then yes, referees are justified in stepping in. But a one-time reaction? That's just part of sports. And that's why the broader message here should be simple. Let players show emotion, within reason. Whether it's Caitlin Clark with the Indiana Fever, Paige Bueckers in college, or anyone playing for United States national women's basketball team, emotion is part of competition. Sports are better when athletes play freely and authentically. At the end of the day, players don't need to act like robots. They just need to compete, respect the game, and keep it within reasonable limits. And if that includes the occasional frustrated reaction to a referee, that's simply part of the reality of competitive sports.